Question 1. The audit findings indicate a potential security lapse in the storage of upcoming Amet University entrance exam materials, raising concerns about unauthorized access. As a member of the administrative team responsible for exam logistics, what is the most appropriate course of action? Option A. Immediately initiate a formal review of the security protocols and access logs related to the exam materials through the designated university channels, reporting the findings to the relevant oversight committee. Option B. Proceed with the exam as scheduled, assuming the audit findings are minor and unlikely to impact the integrity of the examination. Option C. Inform a close colleague who has experience with exam administration to get their opinion on how to proceed before taking any official action. Option D. Discreetly access the exam materials yourself to assess the extent of the potential breach and then make a judgment on whether to report it. The correct answer is A. Immediately initiate a formal review of the security protocols and access logs related to the exam materials through the designated university channels, reporting the findings to the relevant oversight committee. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the immediate need for information with the ethical and regulatory obligations to protect sensitive data and ensure fair competition. The university entrance exam context adds a layer of responsibility to uphold the integrity of the admissions process. Careful judgment is required to avoid actions that could compromise the exam's fairness or violate data privacy principles. The correct approach involves a structured, authorized process for reviewing exam materials. This approach is right because it adheres to the principles of academic integrity and data protection, which are fundamental to university admissions. Specifically, it aligns with the implied regulatory framework of Amet University, which would mandate secure handling of examination content and fair assessment practices. Accessing materials only through official channels and with proper authorization ensures that no candidate gains an unfair advantage and that the confidentiality of the exam is maintained until its scheduled administration. This upholds the trust placed in the university's admissions process. An incorrect approach of directly accessing and reviewing the exam materials without proper authorization would be a significant ethical and regulatory failure. This action would breach the confidentiality of the examination process, potentially leading to accusations of unfairness and compromising the validity of the entrance exam. It would violate the trust placed in the individual by the university and could have severe reputational and disciplinary consequences. Another incorrect approach of sharing the information with a trusted colleague for a quick review, even with good intentions, also represents a regulatory and ethical failure. This constitutes an unauthorized disclosure of sensitive information, creating a risk of wider dissemination and undermining the security of the examination. It bypasses established protocols for handling confidential materials and could lead to a breach of data privacy. A third incorrect approach of ignoring the findings and proceeding with the exam as scheduled would be a failure to address a potential integrity issue. This inaction allows a vulnerability to persist, which could be exploited, thereby compromising the fairness of the exam. It demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a disregard for the principles of secure examination administration. Professionals in such situations should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to established policies and regulations. This involves 1. Identifying the core issue and its potential impact. 2. Consulting relevant university policies and procedures regarding exam security and data handling. 3. Seeking guidance from appropriate authorities within the university, e.g., Examination Board, Academic Integrity Office. 4. Documenting all actions taken and communications. 5. Acting only through authorized channels and with explicit permission. Question 2. Upon reviewing the application of a highly qualified candidate for the Amet University entrance exam, the admissions committee learns that the candidate's family has expressed a strong willingness to make a substantial donation to the university if their child is admitted. The committee is aware that the university is facing budget constraints. Which approach should the admissions committee prioritize when making their decision? Option A. Expedite the admission process for this candidate, ensuring their acceptance, and then explore the possibility of a donation from the family to help address the university's budget constraints. Option B. Evaluate the candidate's application solely based on their academic achievements and adherence to the published admission criteria for the Amet University entrance exam, without any consideration of the potential donation. Option C. Inform the candidate's family that a significant donation would greatly improve the chances of admission, thereby securing the necessary funds for the university. Option D. Offer the candidate conditional admission, contingent upon the family making a substantial donation within a specified time frame. The correct answer is B. Evaluate the candidate's application solely based on their academic achievements and adherence to the published admission criteria for the Amet University entrance exam, without any consideration of the potential donation. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's immediate financial needs with its long-term ethical obligations and regulatory compliance. The admissions committee must exercise careful judgment to ensure that any decision regarding applicant admissions, especially those involving potential financial incentives, adhere strictly to the Amet University entrance exam's regulatory framework and ethical guidelines. The core challenge lies in preventing undue influence or the appearance of impropriety in the admissions process, which is paramount for maintaining the integrity of the university and its entrance examination. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the applicant's qualifications against the established academic criteria for admission, independent of any potential financial contributions. This approach upholds the principle of merit-based admissions, which is a cornerstone of academic integrity, and is implicitly or explicitly mandated by the Amet University entrance exam's regulatory framework. By focusing solely on academic merit and adherence to published admission standards, the committee ensures that the admissions process is fair, transparent, and free from any perception of favoritism or quid pro quo, thereby safeguarding the university's reputation and compliance with its own governing regulations. An incorrect approach that prioritizes securing a significant donation from the applicant's family before finalizing their admission would represent a serious ethical and regulatory failure. This would create a direct conflict of interest, where financial considerations could override academic suitability, potentially leading to the admission of less qualified candidates. Such an action would violate the spirit and likely the letter of the Amet University entrance exams regulations, which are designed to ensure a fair and equitable admissions process. Furthermore, it could expose the university to reputational damage and potential sanctions if discovered. Another incorrect approach, which involves conditionally offering admission contingent upon a future donation, also fails to meet professional standards. While it might seem like a compromise, it still introduces financial influence into the admissions decision, blurring the lines between academic merit and financial capacity. This can lead to perceptions of corruption and undermine the credibility of the Amet University entrance exam. The university's regulatory framework likely emphasizes objective assessment criteria, and introducing such conditional financial elements would deviate from these principles. A professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a clear adherence to established university policies and the Amet University entrance exam's regulatory guidelines. This includes a commitment to transparency, fairness, and objectivity in all admissions decisions. When faced with potential conflicts of interest, such as the prospect of a significant donation, professionals should proactively seek guidance from university legal counsel or ethics officers to ensure all actions are compliant and ethically sound. The focus must always remain on the applicant's qualifications and suitability for the program, irrespective of external financial factors. Question 3. System analysis indicates that the Amet University Entrance Exam Admissions Committee is reviewing applications. One applicant's family has expressed a strong willingness to make a significant financial contribution to the university if their child is admitted, a contribution that would greatly benefit the university's current financial situation. The applicant's academic profile, however, is borderline for admission based on the standard examination scores and criteria. The committee is considering how to proceed. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the regulatory framework and ethical guidelines for university entrance exams? Option A. Recommend the applicant for a special scholarship program that is not directly tied to their entrance exam performance, but is funded by external donations, effectively bypassing the standard admissions review. Option B. Consider the potential financial contribution from the applicant's family as a significant factor in the admissions decision, alongside academic merit. Option C. Inform the applicant's family that their financial contribution would significantly improve the chances of admission, thereby encouraging a formal donation before the final decision. Option D. Evaluate the applicant solely based on their performance in the entrance exam and other established academic criteria, irrespective of any external financial offers. The correct answer is D. Evaluate the applicant solely based on their performance in the entrance exam and other established academic criteria, irrespective of any external financial offers. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's immediate financial needs and the long-term integrity of its admissions process. The admissions committee is tasked with upholding the fairness and credibility of the entrance exam, which directly impacts the university's reputation and the future opportunities of its applicants. A decision made solely on financial expediency could undermine public trust and lead to accusations of bias or corruption, potentially resulting in severe reputational damage and even regulatory scrutiny if the exam's integrity is compromised. The correct approach involves prioritizing the established examination protocols and ethical guidelines governing university admissions. This means strictly adhering to the predefined criteria for evaluating applicants, ensuring that all candidates are assessed on a level playing field, and maintaining the confidentiality and security of the examination process. This approach is justified by the Amet University Entrance Exam's regulatory framework, which emphasizes meritocracy, fairness, and transparency in admissions. Upholding these principles is paramount to maintaining the university's academic standing and ensuring that admitted students are genuinely qualified. An incorrect approach would be to consider the financial contribution of a prospective student's family as a factor in the admissions decision, even if it's framed as a donation or support for the university. This directly violates the principle of merit-based admissions, as it introduces an external, non-academic criterion into the evaluation process. Such an action would be ethically unsound, as it creates an unfair advantage for wealthier applicants and undermines the integrity of the examination. It could also lead to regulatory repercussions if it's found to contravene any guidelines on fair admissions practices, or if it creates a perception of undue influence. Another incorrect approach would be to bypass the standard review process for this particular applicant due to the perceived financial benefit. This circumvents established procedures and could be interpreted as preferential treatment, eroding trust in the admission system. The regulatory framework for university entrance exams typically mandates a standardized and impartial evaluation process for all candidates, and deviating from this for any reason, including financial incentives, is a breach of these guidelines. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a clear adherence to established ethical codes and regulatory frameworks. Professionals must first identify any potential conflicts of interest or pressures that could compromise their judgment. They should then consult the relevant university policies, admissions guidelines, and any applicable external regulations. If there is ambiguity or a conflict, seeking guidance from a supervisor or an ethics committee is crucial. The ultimate decision must be grounded in fairness, transparency, and the long-term interests of the institution and its stakeholders, prioritizing the integrity of the admissions process above all else. Question 4. System analysis indicates that a senior faculty member at Amet University has a close personal friend whose child is applying for admission. The faculty member is aware of the child's academic record, which has some concerning aspects, but also some strengths. The faculty member is also a member of the university's admissions committee. What is the most ethically sound course of action for the faculty member? Option A. Recuse themselves entirely from any discussion or decision-making regarding the friend's child's application. Option B. Share confidential information about other applicants with the friend to explain the competitive nature of the admissions process. Option C. Advocate for the friend's child to the admissions committee, emphasizing their strengths and downplaying weaknesses. Option D. Proceed with their duties on the admissions committee as usual, without disclosing their personal relationship or the child's academic record. The correct answer is A. Recuse themselves entirely from any discussion or decision-making regarding the friend's child's application. Explanation. This scenario presents an ethical dilemma common in academic settings, specifically concerning the integrity of the admissions process at Amet University. The challenge lies in balancing the university's commitment to fair and merit-based admissions with the personal relationship of a faculty member. The faculty member is privy to confidential information about a candidate's academic performance, which could influence their application's outcome. The core ethical conflict is between loyalty to a friend and the duty to uphold the university's admission standards and principles of fairness to all applicants. The correct approach involves recusing oneself from any part of the admission process for the friend's child. This upholds the principle of impartiality and avoids any perception of undue influence or favoritism. By stepping aside, the faculty member ensures that the admission decision is made solely on the merits of the candidate and the established criteria, without any personal bias, conscious or unconscious. This aligns with Amet University's likely ethical guidelines regarding conflicts of interest and maintaining the integrity of academic processes. It demonstrates a commitment to fairness and transparency, which are foundational to a reputable educational institution. An incorrect approach would be to advocate for the friend's child, even subtly, by highlighting their positive attributes or downplaying any weaknesses. This constitutes a conflict of interest and violates the ethical obligation to treat all applicants equally. Such an action could compromise the integrity of the admissions committee's decision and unfairly disadvantage other deserving candidates. Another incorrect approach would be to share confidential information about other applicants with a friend to justify why their child might not be admitted. This breaches confidentiality and is a serious ethical and potentially regulatory violation. Finally, ignoring the situation and proceeding as usual without disclosing the relationship or recusing oneself is also an incorrect approach. This demonstrates a lack of ethical awareness and a failure to manage a clear conflict of interest, potentially leading to a biased decision and damage to the university's reputation. Professionals in such situations should follow a structured decision-making process. First, identify the potential conflict of interest and the ethical principles at stake. Second, consult relevant university policies and codes of conduct regarding conflicts of interest and admissions procedures. Third, consider the impact of any potential action on all stakeholders, including the applicant, other applicants, the university, and the faculty member's professional reputation. Fourth, choose the course of action that best upholds ethical standards and institutional integrity, which in this case is recusal. Finally, document the decision and the reasons for it, if necessary, to ensure transparency and accountability. Question 5. Examination of the data shows that an applicant for the Amet University entrance exam has discovered a potential error in a submitted document that might affect their eligibility for a specific scholarship they applied for. The applicant is concerned that reporting this error might jeopardize their chances of admission to the university itself, even though the error is not directly related to their academic qualifications for the general program. What is the most ethically sound and procedurally correct course of action for the applicant? Option A. Attempt to subtly correct or resubmit the document without explicit notification, hoping the change will be overlooked or accepted without question. Option B. Immediately contact the Amet University Admissions Office and the relevant scholarship committee to transparently explain the discovered discrepancy and seek guidance on how to proceed. Option C. Ignore the discrepancy, hoping it will not be discovered, and focus on preparing for the entrance exam, assuming the scholarship issue is separate from general admission. Option D. Discuss the situation with friends who are current Amet University students to get informal advice on how to best handle the situation without raising red flags. The correct answer is B. Immediately contact the Amet University Admissions Office and the relevant scholarship committee to transparently explain the discovered discrepancy and seek guidance on how to proceed. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an applicant to navigate the ethical implications of academic integrity and the university's admission policies. The applicant has discovered a potential discrepancy in their submitted application materials that could affect their eligibility. The challenge lies in deciding how to address this discrepancy proactively and ethically, balancing the desire for admission with the obligation to be truthful and transparent. Careful judgment is required to determine the most appropriate course of action that upholds ethical standards and complies with university regulations. The correct approach involves immediate and transparent communication with the Amet University Admissions Office regarding the discovered discrepancy. This demonstrates honesty, integrity, and respect for the university's application process. By proactively informing the university, the applicant allows the admissions committee to make an informed decision based on accurate information. This aligns with the ethical principle of truthfulness and the regulatory expectation that all application materials are accurate and complete. Amet University's entrance exam guidelines, like those of most academic institutions, implicitly require applicants to provide truthful information. Failure to do so can lead to disqualification or revocation of admission. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the discrepancy and hope it goes unnoticed. This is ethically unsound, as it involves intentional omission of crucial information, which is a form of dishonesty. It violates the principle of candor expected of all applicants and could be considered a breach of the university's academic integrity policy. If discovered later, this could lead to severe consequences, including immediate rejection or expulsion. Another incorrect approach would be to attempt to subtly alter or downplay the significance of the discrepancy without full disclosure. This is also ethically problematic as it involves deception. It attempts to circumvent the truth rather than address it directly, undermining the integrity of the application process and the applicant's character. This approach fails to meet the standard of transparency and honesty expected by academic institutions. A third incorrect approach would be to seek advice from current students or unofficial sources on how to manage the situation without directly contacting the admissions office. While seeking advice is not inherently wrong, relying on informal channels for guidance on a matter of academic integrity and official application procedures can lead to misinformation or unethical suggestions. This bypasses the proper channels for addressing application issues and can result in actions that are not in compliance with Amet University's official policies. The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves 1. Identifying the ethical dilemma. Recognize the conflict between personal goals, admission, and ethical obligations, honesty, integrity. 2. Consulting relevant guidelines. Review Amet University's admissions policies, application instructions, and any stated codes of conduct regarding academic integrity. 3. Seeking clarification. If unsure about the implications of a discrepancy, directly contact the official admissions office for guidance. 4. Acting with transparency. Choose the approach that involves the most open and honest communication with the relevant authority. 5. Considering consequences. Evaluate the potential outcomes of each action, both positive and negative, in light of ethical principles and institutional regulations. Question 6. Assessment of a prospective Amet University student's ethical considerations when preparing for the entrance exam, after receiving advice from a senior student about potential exam content. Option A. The student should prioritize obtaining official syllabi and sample papers from the Amet University admissions website and contact the admissions office directly for any queries regarding exam scope and format. Option B. The student should disregard all information from the senior student and focus solely on broad, general academic knowledge without seeking any specific exam guidance. Option C. The student should meticulously study all the information provided by the senior student, assuming it represents a direct leak of exam questions. Option D. The student should attempt to contact the senior student's source to verify the information, even if it means circumventing official university communication channels. The correct answer is A. The student should prioritize obtaining official syllabi and sample papers from the Amet University admissions website and contact the admissions office directly for any queries regarding exam scope and format. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire to excel and the university's commitment to academic integrity. Pressure to perform well in a high-stakes entrance exam, coupled with the availability of potentially misleading information, requires careful judgment to uphold ethical standards. The correct approach involves a student proactively seeking clarification from official university sources regarding the exam content and format. This demonstrates a commitment to understanding the requirements through legitimate channels, respecting the integrity of the examination process. This aligns with the Amet University entrance exam stated guidelines, which emphasize fair and transparent assessment and implicitly prohibit the use of unauthorized or speculative information. Ethically, it upholds principles of honesty and diligence. An incorrect approach would be to rely on information shared by a senior student that purports to reveal specific exam questions or topics not officially disclosed. This is professionally unacceptable because it bypasses the established communication channels of the university and introduces the risk of misinformation. It violates the principle of academic integrity by seeking an unfair advantage and potentially preparing based on inaccurate data, which could lead to a misallocation of study effort and a compromised understanding of the actual exam material. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the senior student's information entirely without any attempt to verify or understand the exam scope through official means. While avoiding the temptation of illicit information, this passive stance might lead to inadequate preparation if the senior student's advice, though speculative, contained some kernel of truth about the exam's emphasis. It fails to proactively engage with the examination requirements in a responsible manner. A further incorrect approach would be to dismiss the senior student's information as irrelevant and proceed with studying based solely on general knowledge without any specific guidance on the exam structure or focus. This is professionally unsound, as it neglects a potential, albeit unofficial, source of insight into the exam's design, and fails to leverage all available avenues for informed preparation within ethical boundaries. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic evaluation of information sources. First, identify the official channels for exam information provided by the university. Second, critically assess any unofficial information received, considering its source and potential biases. Third, prioritize seeking clarification and confirmation from official sources. Fourth, develop a study plan based on verified information, ensuring it aligns with the university's stated academic standards and ethical guidelines. Question 7. Which approach would be most appropriate for an applicant to Amet University who initially indicated a strong interest in pursuing a Bachelor of Science in Computer Engineering, but has recently decided to change their intended major to a Bachelor of Arts in History, and is concerned about how this significant shift might be perceived by the admissions committee? Option A. Assume that the admissions committee is too busy to scrutinize individual application details, and that the change in major will not significantly impact their application review. Option B. Directly contact the Amet University admissions office to explain the change in intended major, providing a sincere reason for the shift and reaffirming their enthusiasm for the Bachelor of Arts in History program. Option C. Invent a plausible but untrue reason for the change in major to make the decision appear more consistent with their academic profile. Option D. Submit the application without mentioning the change in intended major, hoping the admissions committee will not notice the discrepancy or will overlook it. The correct answer is B. Directly contact the Amet University admissions office to explain the change in intended major, providing a sincere reason for the shift and reaffirming their enthusiasm for the Bachelor of Arts in History program. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an applicant to demonstrate an understanding of the ethical and regulatory considerations surrounding academic integrity within the context of university admissions. The applicant must navigate the potential for misrepresentation and ensure their application is truthful and compliant with Amet University's stated policies. Careful judgment is required to avoid actions that could be construed as dishonest or misleading, which could jeopardize their admission. The correct approach involves a proactive and transparent communication strategy. This entails directly addressing the discrepancy with the admissions committee, providing a clear and honest explanation for the change in their intended major, and reiterating their genuine interest in the chosen program. This approach aligns with the ethical principle of honesty and integrity, fundamental to academic pursuits. It also adheres to the implicit regulatory framework of university admissions, which mandates truthful representation of an applicant's qualifications and intentions. By being upfront, the applicant demonstrates maturity and a commitment to ethical conduct, which are valued by educational institutions. An incorrect approach that involves omitting the information about the change in major is ethically flawed because it constitutes a deliberate act of concealment, which is a form of misrepresentation. This violates the principle of honesty and could be seen as an attempt to gain an unfair advantage. From a regulatory perspective, it contravenes the spirit and likely the letter of any university's admissions policy that requires complete and accurate disclosure. Another incorrect approach, which is to fabricate a reason for the change in major, is ethically reprehensible as it involves outright deception. This not only violates honesty, but also demonstrates a lack of integrity and respect for the admissions process. Such an action would have severe regulatory consequences if discovered, potentially leading to immediate disqualification from the admissions process and future academic repercussions. A further incorrect approach, which is to assume the admissions committee will not notice or care about the change, demonstrates a lack of professional diligence and an underestimation of the scrutiny involved in admissions. Ethically, it shows a disregard for the importance of accuracy and transparency. Regulatory-wise, it fails to acknowledge the university's right to accurate information for making informed admission decisions. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a commitment to honesty and transparency. Applicants should always strive to provide accurate and complete information. When faced with a situation that might lead to a discrepancy, the first step should be to identify the potential issue. The next step is to consider the ethical implications and the relevant university policies. The most appropriate action is almost always to proactively and honestly communicate the situation to the relevant authority. In this case, the Amet University Admissions Committee, providing a clear explanation and demonstrating continued genuine interest. Question 8. Implementation of a revised admissions policy at Amet University requires the admissions committee to evaluate a prospective student's claim of extenuating circumstances affecting their prior academic record, which they believe unfairly impacted their performance on a standardized preparatory test relevant to the entrance exam. The student has provided a personal statement detailing a family emergency during the test period. Option A. The admissions committee should request official documentation from the student to verify the family emergency and consult the Amet University entrance exam regulations for any provisions regarding special consideration or reevaluation in such cases before making a decision. Option B. The admissions committee should delegate the decision-making process to the student's former academic advisor, who has no direct knowledge of Amet University's entrance exam policies. Option C. The admissions committee should inform the student that their prior test performance is final and that no exceptions can be made, regardless of personal circumstances, as per the university's strict adherence to standardized testing. Option D. The admissions committee should immediately grant the student a conditional offer of admission, waiving the entrance exam requirement based on their personal statement and the perceived unfairness of the prior test. The correct answer is D. The admissions committee should immediately grant the student a conditional offer of admission, waiving the entrance exam requirement based on their personal statement and the perceived unfairness of the prior test. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic advancement and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment. The university entrance exam, as a gatekeeper for admission, requires a rigorous and unbiased evaluation process. Any deviation from established procedures, even with seemingly good intentions, can undermine the credibility of the examination and the admissions process. Careful judgment is required to uphold these principles, while also considering the individual circumstances of applicants. The correct approach involves a thorough and impartial review of the student's situation against the established policies of Amet University. This means verifying the validity of the student's claim through official channels, such as requesting documentation from the previous institution or consulting with the examination board. The decision must then be made based on whether the student's circumstances meet the defined criteria for special consideration or reevaluation, as outlined in the Amet University entrance exam regulations. This approach is ethically sound and regulatory compliant because it prioritizes fairness, transparency, and adherence to established rules, ensuring that all applicants are treated equitably and that the integrity of the entrance examination is maintained. An incorrect approach would be to grant the student an immediate exemption or special consideration based solely on their personal narrative without independent verification. This fails to uphold the principle of equal opportunity for all applicants, as it bypasses the standard assessment process. It also risks setting a precedent that could lead to future challenges to the fairness of the examination. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the student's concerns outright without any form of investigation or consideration. This demonstrates a lack of empathy and a failure to follow due process, potentially violating university guidelines on student support and grievance procedures. A third incorrect approach would be to consult informally with a colleague for an opinion without following the university's official channels for decision-making. This undermines the formal review process and can lead to inconsistent or biased outcomes. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making framework that begins with understanding the relevant policies and regulations. This is followed by gathering all necessary information and evidence, objectively assessing the situation against the established criteria, consulting with appropriate authorities if needed, and finally, making a decision that is both fair and compliant with the regulatory framework. Question 9. Market research demonstrates a significant opportunity to increase enrollment at Amet University by attracting a broader range of applicants. The admissions committee is considering strategies to achieve this, and a proposal has been put forward to review the Amet University entrance exam scoring to ensure it is not inadvertently excluding promising candidates who may not perform optimally under high-pressure, standardized testing conditions. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the regulatory framework and ethical principles governing the Amet University entrance exam? Option A. Develop a supplementary assessment component focused on evaluating soft skills and perceived leadership potential, which can be used to override lower scores on the entrance exam for candidates who demonstrate strong non-academic attributes. Option B. Introduce a tiered scoring system where different applicant groups are assessed against slightly varied benchmarks, allowing for greater flexibility in meeting enrollment targets while still acknowledging academic merit. Option C. Conduct a thorough review of the exam's psychometric properties and question design to identify any potential biases or areas where clarity could be improved, ensuring the exam accurately measures core competencies and aptitude for university-level study, and then propose adjustments to question difficulty or scoring based on objective data and alignment with intended learning outcomes. Option D. Implement a system to identify questions that are statistically less effective at differentiating candidates and revise them to be more accessible, thereby increasing the overall pass rate and making the exam appear less daunting to potential applicants. Correct answer is C. Conduct a thorough review of the exam's psychometric properties and question design to identify any potential biases or areas where clarity could be improved, ensuring the exam accurately measures core competencies and aptitude for university-level study, and then propose adjustments to question difficulty or scoring based on objective data and alignment with intended learning outcomes. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's strategic goals with the ethical obligations of academic integrity and fair assessment. The pressure to increase enrollment figures, while a legitimate institutional objective, must not compromise the validity and fairness of the entrance examination process. Misinterpreting or manipulating assessment criteria to meet enrollment targets would undermine the credibility of Amet University and its degrees. The correct approach involves a rigorous and objective review of the examination content and scoring mechanisms to ensure they accurately reflect the intended learning outcomes and are applied consistently. This approach upholds the principles of fairness and meritocracy inherent in academic admissions. Specifically, it aligns with the Amet University entrance exam's regulatory framework, which emphasizes the importance of standardized, unbiased assessment to identify candidates with the requisite knowledge and aptitude. The framework mandates that all admissions criteria and evaluation methods must be transparent, consistently applied, and demonstrably linked to academic preparedness, thereby ensuring that enrollment increases are a result of attracting qualified candidates, not lowering standards. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on identifying easier questions to boost pass rates would be a direct violation of the exam's regulatory framework. This would compromise the validity of the assessment by failing to accurately measure the intended competencies. It would also be ethically unsound, as it would create an unfair advantage for some candidates and disadvantage others who prepared for a genuinely rigorous evaluation. Another incorrect approach, which involves selectively adjusting scoring thresholds for different demographic groups to meet enrollment targets, would contravene the principles of equal opportunity and non-discrimination, which are implicitly or explicitly part of any reputable university's ethical guidelines, and often reflected in broader educational regulations. Such an action would not only be discriminatory, but would also fundamentally undermine the integrity of the admissions process, leading to the enrollment of underqualified students and damaging the university's reputation. A third incorrect approach, prioritizing the recruitment of candidates with perceived potential over demonstrated academic achievement as measured by the exam, risks introducing subjectivity and bias into the admissions process. While identifying potential is valuable, the entrance exam is specifically designed to be a standardized measure of current academic readiness. Deviating from this without a clear, regulated process for evaluating potential would bypass the established assessment criteria and could lead to inconsistent and unfair admissions decisions, violating the spirit and letter of the exam's regulatory framework. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a clear understanding of the Amet University entrance exam's regulatory framework and ethical guidelines. Professionals must prioritize the integrity and fairness of the assessment process above institutional pressures. This involves seeking clarification from governing bodies, consulting with academic committees, and advocating for approaches that uphold established standards. If faced with pressure to compromise these standards, professionals have an ethical obligation to document concerns and escalate them through appropriate channels, potentially involving external regulatory oversight if necessary. Question 10. During the evaluation of an applicant's submission for the Amet University entrance exam, the admissions committee reviews their academic transcripts and standardized test scores. The applicant also submits a personal statement detailing significant personal hardships they have faced, which they believe may have affected their academic performance in certain periods. The committee must decide how to proceed with the evaluation. Option A. Evaluate the applicant's academic record and supporting documentation strictly against the published admission criteria for the Amet University entrance exam, considering the personal statement only as supplementary context if it directly explains a documented impact on academic performance within the scope of university policy. Option B. Immediately reject the application upon reading about the personal hardships, assuming they are an insurmountable barrier to admission. Option C. Prioritize the applicant's personal hardships as described in their statement, adjusting the admission criteria to accommodate their situation to ensure fairness. Option D. Seek informal advice from a senior faculty member outside the admissions committee about how to interpret the applicant's personal statement and its relevance to their academic record. The correct answer is A. Evaluate the applicant's academic record and supporting documentation strictly against the published admission criteria for the Amet University entrance exam, considering the personal statement only as supplementary context if it directly explains a documented impact on academic performance within the scope of university policy. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in university admissions where an applicant's personal circumstances may appear to warrant special consideration. The professional challenge lies in balancing the university's commitment to fairness and equal opportunity for all applicants with the need to acknowledge and potentially accommodate genuine hardship. Strict adherence to established admission criteria is paramount to maintain the integrity of the selection process and prevent bias. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the applicant's academic record and supporting documentation against the published admission criteria. This ensures that the decision is based on objective merit and adherence to the university's stated requirements. The regulatory framework for university admissions, as implicitly defined by the Amet University entrance exam guidelines, mandates that all applicants be assessed on the same set of criteria to ensure fairness and prevent discrimination. This approach upholds the principle of equal opportunity by applying the same standards to all candidates, regardless of their personal circumstances. Incorrect approach is analysis. An approach that prioritizes the applicant's personal circumstances over academic merit and adherence to published criteria is ethically and regulatorily unsound. This would constitute preferential treatment, undermining the fairness of the admissions process and potentially violating the spirit of the Amet University entrance exam regulations, which are designed to establish a standardized and objective evaluation. An approach that immediately rejects the application based solely on the mention of hardship, without a proper review of academic qualifications and supporting evidence, is also problematic. While academic merit is key, a complete disregard for any mitigating circumstances that might have impacted performance, if properly documented and within the scope of university policy, could be seen as lacking in due diligence and potentially overlooking valid reasons for a deviation from expected performance. However, the primary focus must remain on the established criteria. An approach that involves seeking external opinions or informal advice from individuals not involved in the official admissions committee, especially regarding the applicant's personal situation, introduces an unacceptable risk of bias and breaches confidentiality. Admissions decisions must be made through the designated channels and based on documented evidence and established criteria, not on informal consultations. Professional reasoning. Professionals in university admissions should follow a structured decision-making process. First, clearly understand and apply the published admission criteria. Second, meticulously review all submitted documentation, ensuring it aligns with the stated requirements. Third, if there are ambiguities or potential grounds for special consideration as defined by university policy, e.g., documented extenuating circumstances that directly impacted academic performance, these should be assessed within the established framework and by the authorized committee. Decisions must be transparent, justifiable, and consistently applied to all applicants. Question 11. Stakeholder feedback indicates a strong desire for a more streamlined and less rigorous admissions process to attract a larger applicant pool. The university is considering implementing changes that could significantly alter the current assessment criteria. Which approach to managing the potential risks associated with these changes best aligns with professional and ethical standards for university admissions? Option A. Prioritize implementing the changes that directly address the most vocal stakeholder feedback to demonstrate responsiveness and address any emerging issues on a reactive basis. Option B. Implement the proposed changes immediately to capitalize on positive stakeholder sentiment, deferring any formal risk assessment until after the next admissions cycle. Option C. Focus the risk assessment solely on the potential for increased enrollment numbers, as this is the primary objective indicated by stakeholder feedback. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive risk assessment that identifies potential negative impacts on academic standards, fairness, and the university's reputation, and develop mitigation strategies before implementing any changes. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive risk assessment that identifies potential negative impacts on academic standards, fairness, and the university's reputation, and develop mitigation strategies before implementing any changes. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's strategic goals with the ethical obligations to potential applicants and the integrity of the admissions process. The pressure to meet enrollment targets can create a conflict of interest, where the desire for positive stakeholder feedback might tempt individuals to overlook or downplay genuine risks. Careful judgment is required to ensure that risk assessment is conducted objectively and ethically, rather than being influenced by external pressures or a desire for superficial approval. The correct approach involves a comprehensive and objective assessment of all potential risks associated with the proposed changes to the admissions process, regardless of whether they align with immediate stakeholder desires. This approach prioritizes the long-term integrity and fairness of the university's admission system. Ethically, this aligns with principles of transparency, fairness, and due diligence, ensuring that decisions are based on a thorough understanding of potential negative consequences and are made in the best interest of the institution and its applicants. Regulatory frameworks for university admissions, while not explicitly detailed here, generally mandate fair and equitable treatment of all applicants and require institutions to operate with a degree of prudence and foresight regarding their processes. An approach that focuses solely on immediate stakeholder satisfaction without a thorough risk assessment is professionally unacceptable. Its failure stems from a disregard for due diligence and a potential violation of ethical duties to ensure a robust and fair admissions process. It prioritizes short-term positive perception over long-term institutional integrity and applicant welfare. Such an approach risks overlooking critical issues that could lead to future reputational damage, legal challenges, or a decline in the quality of admitted students. Another incorrect approach, which prioritizes only the most vocal stakeholder concerns while ignoring others, is also professionally flawed. This demonstrates a lack of comprehensive stakeholder engagement and an incomplete understanding of the diverse perspectives and potential impacts. It can lead to biased decision-making and may not adequately address the full spectrum of risks. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Identifying all relevant stakeholders and their potential concerns. 2. Conducting a thorough and objective risk assessment that considers all potential negative outcomes, not just those highlighted by specific feedback. 3. Evaluating the likelihood and impact of identified risks. 4. Developing mitigation strategies for significant risks. 5. Communicating the findings of the risk assessment and proposed mitigation plans to relevant stakeholders in a transparent manner. 6. Making decisions based on a balanced consideration of stakeholder feedback, risk assessment findings, and the university's strategic and ethical objectives. Question 12. Performance analysis shows a significant number of submissions in the Amet University Entrance Exams essay section exhibit unusual textual similarities with publicly available online resources. A preliminary automated scan flags several essays for potential plagiarism. Considering the exam's strict adherence to its own regulatory framework, which of the following actions best upholds the principles of academic integrity and fair assessment? Option A. Proceed with grading all essays as submitted, assuming the similarities are coincidental or due to common knowledge, to avoid delaying the exam results and potential disputes. Option B. Inform the students whose essays were flagged about the suspicion of plagiarism and ask them to provide an explanation without initiating a formal investigation or presenting specific evidence. Option C. Immediately disqualify all flagged essays and assign a failing grade for the section, as the automated scan provides sufficient evidence of misconduct. Option D. Conduct a detailed manual review of the flagged essays, comparing specific passages against identified sources, and following the university's established protocol for investigating academic misconduct before any disciplinary action is considered. Correct answer is C. Immediately disqualify all flagged essays and assign a failing grade for the section, as the automated scan provides sufficient evidence of misconduct. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge related to academic integrity and the fair evaluation of student work within the Amet University Entrance Exam framework. The core difficulty lies in balancing the need to uphold the exam standards and prevent academic misconduct with the ethical obligation to provide a fair and unbiased assessment for all candidates. A careful judgment is required to identify and address potential breaches without unfairly penalizing legitimate efforts. The correct approach involves a thorough, evidence-based investigation into the suspected plagiarism. This means gathering concrete proof, such as matching text segments, identifying the source of the alleged plagiarism, and comparing it directly to the student's submission. This approach aligns with the principles of fairness and due process, ensuring that any disciplinary action is based on verifiable facts. Ethically, it upholds the integrity of the examination process and the university's commitment to academic honesty. Regulationally, it adheres to the Amet University Entrance Exam's established procedures for handling academic misconduct, which typically mandate a formal investigation and a clear burden of proof before any sanctions are applied. An incorrect approach that involves immediate disqualification based solely on a superficial similarity or a single flagged instance without further investigation is procedurally flawed and ethically unsound. This fails to account for accidental similarities, common phrasing, or the possibility of legitimate source citation. It violates the principle of natural justice, which requires a fair hearing and the opportunity for the accused to respond. Such an approach could lead to an unjust outcome and damage the university's reputation. Another incorrect approach, which is to ignore the suspicion and proceed with grading as normal, represents a failure to uphold academic standards. This inaction allows potential academic misconduct to go unaddressed, undermining the credibility of the Amet University Entrance Exam and creating an unfair advantage for the student in question. Ethically, it is a dereliction of duty to maintain a fair and honest assessment environment. Regulationally, it contravenes the university's policies on academic integrity and examination conduct. A third incorrect approach, which is to confront the student informally without a formal process or evidence, is also problematic. While it might seem like a direct way to address the issue, it lacks the structure and documentation required for a fair resolution. It bypasses established procedures, potentially leading to disputes and an inability to enforce any consequences effectively. This approach fails to provide the student with a clear understanding of the allegations or a formal opportunity to defend themselves, which is a cornerstone of fair academic practice. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic approach. 1. Identify the potential issue. Recognize signs of possible academic misconduct. 2. Gather preliminary evidence. Collect initial data that suggests a problem. 3. Consult relevant policies, Refer to the Amet University entrance exam-specific regulations and guidelines on academic integrity and examination procedures. 4. Initiate a formal investigation. If preliminary evidence warrants, begin a structured inquiry according to university protocols. 5. Document all findings. Maintain a clear and comprehensive record of evidence, communications, and decisions. 6. Provide the student with due process. Inform the student of the allegations and allow them to respond. 7. Make a decision based on evidence and policy. Apply the university's rules to the established facts. 8. Communicate the decision and any consequences clearly. Question 13. Benchmark analysis indicates that during the Amet University entrance exam administration, a proctor is approached by a student who, appearing distressed, whispers a request for a hint on a specific question, stating they are struggling and fear failing. The proctor is aware of the university's strict policy against any form of assistance during the exam. What is the most ethically and regulatorily sound course of action for the proctor? Option A. Provide a subtle, non-verbal hint to the student to help them answer the question, believing it is a minor act of compassion. Option B. Ignore the student's request and continue with their proctoring duties without acknowledging the interaction. Option C. Politely but firmly inform the student that no assistance can be provided during the exam and discreetly report the incident to the examination supervisor. Option D. Offer to discuss the question with the student after the exam has concluded, implying that some guidance might be possible then. The correct answer is C. Politely but firmly inform the student that no assistance can be provided during the exam and discreetly report the incident to the examination supervisor. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's perceived need for assistance and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment. The pressure to perform well in entrance exams can lead students to seek unethical advantages, while university staff are bound by ethical codes and regulations to uphold the fairness of the process. The core of the challenge lies in balancing support for students with the imperative to prevent academic misconduct. The correct approach involves upholding the integrity of the Amet University entrance exam by strictly adhering to the established examination regulations and ethical guidelines. This means refusing to provide any unauthorized assistance or information that could compromise the fairness of the exam. The justification for this approach is rooted in the fundamental principles of academic integrity, which are paramount in university admissions. Providing such assistance would violate the trust placed in the admissions process, create an unfair advantage for one student over others, and ultimately undermine the credibility of Amet University. Furthermore, it would contravene the explicit rules and regulations governing the entrance exam, which are designed to ensure a level playing field for all applicants. An incorrect approach would be to provide the student with specific questions or answers from the exam. This is a direct violation of academic integrity and exam regulations. It constitutes academic misconduct and would unfairly disadvantage other candidates who have prepared through legitimate means. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the student's request and proceed with the exam as if no request was made. While this avoids direct complicity, it fails to address the ethical breach and the potential for future misconduct. It also misses an opportunity to reinforce the university's commitment to ethical conduct. A third incorrect approach would be to offer general study advice that is so detailed it borders on providing exam content. This is a subtle but still unethical way to circumvent the rules, as it still aims to give the student an unfair advantage. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the university's academic integrity policy and examination rules. When faced with such a request, a professional should first acknowledge the student's concern, but firmly and clearly state the boundaries of acceptable conduct. They should then report the incident through the appropriate university channels, such as the admissions office or an ethics committee, to ensure proper investigation and action. This process prioritizes transparency, adherence to regulations, and the protection of the academic environment. Question 14. The assessment process reveals that the current Amet University entrance exam has a high administrative cost and a lengthy scoring period. To address this, a proposal is made to significantly reduce the number of assessment sections, focusing only on what are perceived as the most critical areas, and to implement a more automated, multiple-choice heavy format for the remaining sections. This aims to expedite the assessment and scoring, thereby lowering operational expenses and allowing for quicker admission decisions. Option A. Implement the proposed changes for a trial period on a small cohort of applicants to gauge the immediate impact on scoring speed and cost, without a thorough prior analysis of the assessment's validity. Option B. Delegate the decision-making process to the admissions committee, allowing them to implement the changes based on their immediate perceptions of efficiency, without a formal review of the assessment's psychometric properties. Option C. Immediately approve the proposal to reduce the assessment sections and adopt a predominantly multiple-choice format to achieve significant cost savings and faster processing times, as efficiency is a primary goal for university operations. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive review of the proposed changes to assess their impact on the validity and reliability of the examination, ensuring that the reduced assessment still accurately measures the essential competencies required for university study, and that the automated format does not introduce unintended biases. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive review of the proposed changes to assess their impact on the validity and reliability of the examination, ensuring that the reduced assessment still accurately measures the essential competencies required for university study, and that the automated format does not introduce unintended biases. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's need for efficient resource allocation with the ethical obligation to provide a fair and comprehensive assessment for all prospective students. The pressure to streamline processes must not compromise the integrity of the entrance examination, which serves as a critical gateway to higher education. Careful judgment is required to identify and mitigate potential biases or oversights that could disadvantage certain applicant groups. Correct approach involves a thorough review of the assessment's content and structure to ensure it accurately measures the skills and knowledge deemed essential for success at Amet University, while also being accessible and equitable to a diverse applicant pool. This aligns with the fundamental principles of fair assessment and the regulatory framework governing university admissions, which typically mandates that selection criteria be relevant, objective, and non-discriminatory. The goal is to identify candidates with the highest potential, not to create artificial barriers. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on reducing the number of assessment components without considering their impact on validity or fairness would be professionally unacceptable. This could lead to an assessment that fails to adequately differentiate between candidates, potentially admitting less qualified students or rejecting highly capable ones. Such an approach would violate the ethical duty to conduct a robust and meaningful evaluation. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes speed of administration over the quality and comprehensiveness of the assessment would also be a failure. This might involve using standardized, one-size-fits-all questions that do not account for different learning backgrounds or styles, thereby introducing bias. This contravenes the principle of equitable opportunity, as it may disproportionately disadvantage students from less resourced educational environments. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a systematic evaluation of the assessment's purpose, its alignment with learning objectives, and its potential impact on all stakeholders. This includes consulting with subject matter experts, reviewing best practices in educational assessment, and considering feedback from pilot testing or previous iterations. A decision-making framework should prioritize evidence-based approaches, ethical considerations, and a commitment to fairness and equity throughout the assessment lifecycle. Question 15. Process analysis reveals that Amet University has received a substantial donation offer from a private individual whose business dealings have recently come under public scrutiny for alleged unethical practices, though no formal charges have been filed. The university's finance department is eager to accept the funds to address immediate budget shortfalls. The university's mission statement emphasizes integrity and social responsibility. What is the most ethically sound and professionally responsible course of action for Amet University in this situation? Option A. Accept the donation immediately to alleviate the budget shortfalls, as the donor has not been formally charged with any wrongdoing. Option B. Accept the donation, but implement strict internal controls to ensure the funds are used solely for operational expenses and not for any visible projects that might be associated with the donor. Option C. Accept the donation and issue a public statement acknowledging the generosity without mentioning the donor's name, to avoid any potential controversy. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive due diligence investigation into the donor's background and the source of the funds. If significant ethical concerns are identified that conflict with the university's values, decline the donation. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive due diligence investigation into the donor's background and the source of the funds. If significant ethical concerns are identified that conflict with the university's values, decline the donation. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's immediate financial needs with the long-term ethical implications of accepting funding from a source with a questionable reputation. The pressure to secure funding can create a conflict of interest, where the perceived benefit of the donation might overshadow potential reputational damage or ethical compromises. Careful judgment is required to navigate this conflict, ensuring that decisions align with the university's core values and academic integrity. The correct approach involves a thorough due diligence process that extends beyond the financial aspect of the donation. This includes investigating the donor's background, the source of their wealth, and any potential reputational risks associated with accepting their funds. If the investigation reveals significant ethical concerns or potential conflicts with the university's mission and values, the appropriate action is to decline the donation, regardless of its size. This aligns with the ethical principles of academic integrity, institutional reputation management, and responsible stewardship of university resources. Adhering to established university policies on gift acceptance, which typically mandate such due diligence, is also a critical regulatory requirement. An incorrect approach would be to accept the donation without adequate scrutiny, prioritizing the immediate financial gain. This fails to uphold the university's ethical obligations to maintain its reputation and avoid association with potentially illicit or unethical activities. Such a decision could lead to public backlash, damage to the university's standing among prospective students, faculty, and other donors, and could even attract regulatory scrutiny if the funds are later found to be linked to illegal activities. Another incorrect approach would be to accept the donation, but attempt to conceal the donor's identity or the source of the funds. This is ethically unsound, as it involves deception and undermines transparency, which are fundamental to institutional trust. It also creates a significant risk of exposure and further reputational damage if the truth is revealed. A third incorrect approach would be to accept the donation and proceed with its intended use without considering the ethical implications or potential for negative association. This demonstrates a lack of foresight and a failure to engage in responsible decision-making, potentially leading to unforeseen consequences that could harm the university's long-term interests. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Identify the ethical dilemma and potential conflicts of interest. 2. Consult relevant university policies and ethical guidelines. 3. Conduct thorough due diligence on the proposed donor and the source of funds. 4. Assess the potential reputational and ethical risks associated with accepting the donation. 5. Seek advice from relevant stakeholders, such as the ethics committee, legal counsel, or senior leadership. 6. Make a decision based on a comprehensive evaluation of all factors, prioritizing ethical considerations and the long-term well-being of the institution. 7. Document the decision-making process and the rationale behind the final choice. Question 16. Cost-benefit analysis shows that introducing a new, fee-based preparatory course directly linked to the Amet University entrance exam content could significantly increase university revenue. However, this course would be developed and delivered by a subsidiary company owned by the university, raising questions about potential conflicts of interest and fairness to applicants who cannot afford or access this additional preparation. The university must decide whether to proceed with this initiative, which approach best aligns with the regulatory framework and ethical considerations for the Amet University entrance exam. Option A. Develop the preparatory course but outsource its management to an independent third party to mitigate conflicts of interest without extensive consultation on its potential impact on exam fairness. Option B. Decline the preparatory course initiative due to the inherent risk of creating an uneven playing field and potential regulatory challenges, focusing instead on improving existing free preparatory resources. Option C. Proceed with the preparatory course, ensuring clear disclosure of the subsidiary's ownership and the voluntary nature of the course, while actively monitoring applicant feedback for any perceived unfairness. Option D. Implement the preparatory course immediately to capitalize on the revenue opportunity, assuming that the benefits of increased funding will ultimately outweigh any minor concerns about fairness. The correct answer is C. Proceed with the preparatory course, ensuring clear disclosure of the subsidiary's ownership and the voluntary nature of the course, while actively monitoring applicant feedback for any perceived unfairness. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate financial benefits of a new program against potential long-term reputational damage and regulatory scrutiny. The university must consider not only the direct costs and benefits, but also the intangible impacts on its standing and the ethical implications of its decisions. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the pursuit of financial gain does not compromise the university's core mission and values, nor its adherence to the Amet University entrance exam regulations. The correct approach involves prioritizing adherence to the Amet University entrance exam's regulatory framework, specifically focusing on the spirit and letter of the guidelines concerning fairness, transparency, and the integrity of the admissions process. This means ensuring that any new program, even one with clear cost-benefit advantages, does not inadvertently create an unfair advantage or disadvantage for any applicant group, nor does it circumvent the established examination procedures. Regulatory justification stems from the overarching principle of maintaining the validity and credibility of the entrance examination, which is paramount for fair selection and the university's reputation. Ethical justification lies in the commitment to equal opportunity and the avoidance of any perception of impropriety. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on maximizing revenue without considering the regulatory implications would fail to uphold the integrity of the entrance examination. This could lead to accusations of bias or unfair practices, resulting in reputational damage and potential sanctions from regulatory bodies overseeing university admissions. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes speed of implementation over thorough review of the regulatory framework risks overlooking subtle but critical compliance issues. This could result in unintended violations, requiring costly remediation and undermining stakeholder trust. A third incorrect approach that dismisses potential negative impacts on applicant experience as secondary to financial gains demonstrates a failure to appreciate the interconnectedness of financial success and institutional reputation, which is often built on positive stakeholder experiences and ethical conduct. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a comprehensive understanding of the relevant regulatory framework. In this case, the Amet University entrance exam guidelines. This should be followed by a thorough assessment of all potential impacts, both positive and negative, tangible and intangible, on all stakeholders. Ethical considerations should be integrated at every stage, ensuring that decisions align with the university's values and the principles of fairness and integrity. Finally, a robust risk assessment should be conducted to identify and mitigate any potential compliance or reputational risks before implementation. Question 17. The control framework reveals a situation where a prospective student's family has indicated a significant donation to Amet University, contingent upon the student's successful admission. The student meets the minimum academic requirements for the program, but is not a standout candidate compared to others in the applicant pool. The admissions committee is aware of the potential donation. Which course of action best upholds the integrity of the admissions process? Option A. Evaluate the applicant solely on their academic merit and adherence to all established admission criteria, ensuring the potential donation is not discussed or considered during the admissions decision. Option B. Discuss the potential donation with the applicant's family to understand the specifics of their commitment before making an admissions decision. Option C. Reject the applicant outright to avoid any perception of impropriety, even if they meet the admission criteria. Option D. Inform the admissions committee of the potential donation and encourage them to give the applicant favorable consideration to secure the funding for the university. The correct answer is A. Evaluate the applicant solely on their academic merit and adherence to all established admission criteria, ensuring the potential donation is not discussed or considered during the admissions decision. Explanation. The control framework reveals a potential conflict of interest that requires careful judgment. The challenge lies in balancing the university's need for external funding with the integrity of the academic admissions process. A decision-maker must navigate the ethical imperative to ensure fair and equitable treatment for all applicants, regardless of their background or any potential benefits to the institution. The correct approach involves a rigorous and objective assessment of the applicant's qualifications against the established admission criteria, without any undue influence from the potential donation. This upholds the principle of meritocracy and ensures that admissions decisions are based solely on academic suitability. This aligns with the ethical guidelines of academic institutions, which mandate impartiality and transparency in admissions, and the broader regulatory expectation that educational bodies operate with integrity and avoid conflicts of interest that could compromise their core functions. An incorrect approach that prioritizes the potential donation over the applicant's qualifications would be a severe ethical and regulatory failure. This would undermine the fairness of the admissions process, potentially admitting less qualified candidates and disadvantaging more deserving ones. Such an action could also expose the university to reputational damage and scrutiny from regulatory bodies concerned with the probity of educational institutions. Another incorrect approach, which involves disclosing the potential donation to the admissions committee without clearly delineating its irrelevance to the decision-making process, also presents a significant risk. While seemingly transparent, it could inadvertently create bias, even if unspoken, leading to subconscious favoritism. This approach fails to adequately insulate the decision-making process from external pressures and does not demonstrate the robust control necessary to prevent undue influence. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with identifying potential conflicts of interest. They should then consult relevant university policies and ethical codes. The next step is to seek objective advice if necessary, and to make a decision that prioritizes fairness, integrity, and compliance with all applicable regulations and ethical standards, ensuring that the decision is demonstrably independent of any external inducements. Question 18. Investigation of a student suspected of possessing unauthorized study notes during the Amet University entrance exam. What is the most appropriate initial course of action for the examination proctor, strictly adhering to the Amet University entrance exam's regulatory framework? Option A. Confiscate the suspected unauthorized materials and report the incident to the examination board for a formal investigation according to university procedures. Option B. Discreetly observe the student for the remainder of the exam to gather further evidence before reporting the incident. Option C. Issue a verbal warning to the student about academic integrity and allow them to continue the examination. Option D. Confiscate the suspected unauthorized materials and immediately disqualify the student from the examination. The correct answer is D. Confiscate the suspected unauthorized materials and immediately disqualify the student from the examination. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic success and the university's commitment to academic integrity. The pressure to perform well in a competitive entrance exam can lead students to seek unfair advantages. The university's regulatory framework, as outlined for the Amet University entrance exam, strictly prohibits any form of academic misconduct, including the use of unauthorized materials or assistance. The correct approach involves a thorough and impartial investigation that adheres strictly to the Amet University entrance exam's established procedures for handling suspected academic dishonesty. This approach is justified by the university's regulatory framework, which mandates fair process, evidence-based decision-making, and consistent application of rules to uphold academic integrity. It prioritizes due process for the student while safeguarding the credibility of the examination. An incorrect approach would be to immediately dismiss the student based on suspicion alone. This fails to uphold the principle of innocent until proven guilty, a cornerstone of fair process, often implicitly or explicitly embedded in university regulations. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the allegations due to the student's perceived potential or the inconvenience of an investigation. This violates the university's duty to maintain a fair and equitable examination environment and undermines the integrity of the entire process. Finally, an approach that involves imposing a penalty without a proper investigation or opportunity for the student to respond would be a direct contravention of procedural fairness requirements. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that begins with identifying the alleged misconduct and the relevant university regulations. They must then gather all available evidence objectively, ensuring its admissibility and reliability. Following this, a fair process must be initiated, which typically includes informing the student of the allegations and providing them with an opportunity to present their case. Decisions should be made based solely on the evidence and in accordance with the established regulatory framework, with clear documentation of each step. Question 19. The evaluation methodology shows a tiered system for assessing applicant portfolios, with specific weightings assigned to academic achievements, extracurricular involvement, and standardized test scores. However, an applicant from a region with significantly different educational standards and limited access to extracurricular activities presents a portfolio that excels in academic achievements, but is comparatively weaker in the other two categories due to these external constraints. Which approach best aligns with the principles of fair and equitable university admissions within the Amet University Entrance Exam Framework? Option A. A holistic review that considers the applicant's academic achievements in light of their educational background and regional limitations, while still acknowledging the weighting of other components to determine their overall potential. Option B. A strict adherence to the prescribed weightings, resulting in the applicant being flagged as below the threshold due to the lower scores in extracurricular involvement and standardized tests, regardless of their academic strengths. Option C. A subjective adjustment of the weightings based on the admissions officer's personal impression of the applicant's potential, without explicit justification or reference to the established methodology. Option D. Prioritizing the standardized test scores as the primary determinant of aptitude, effectively discounting the applicant's strong academic achievements and the context of their educational environment. The correct answer is A. A holistic review that considers the applicant's academic achievements in light of their educational background and regional limitations, while still acknowledging the weighting of other components to determine their overall potential. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because the university entrance exam's evaluation methodology, while designed for fairness, can be interpreted in multiple ways when applied to diverse applicant backgrounds. The core difficulty lies in balancing the need for objective assessment with the recognition of varied educational experiences and potential disadvantages. A robust professional approach requires careful consideration of the exam's stated objectives and the ethical imperative to ensure equitable opportunity, as mandated by general principles of fairness and non-discrimination, often embedded in educational regulatory frameworks. The correct approach involves a nuanced interpretation of the evaluation methodology, focusing on its stated intent to assess aptitude and potential rather than solely rote knowledge or specific prior exposure. This means acknowledging that different educational pathways might lead to equivalent levels of understanding or capability, even if the presentation differs. Regulatory justification for this lies in the overarching principles of fairness and equity in admissions, which aim to prevent arbitrary exclusion and promote diversity. Ethically, it aligns with the responsibility to treat all applicants with respect and to provide a genuine opportunity for assessment based on merit, irrespective of their background. An incorrect approach that rigidly applies a single, narrow interpretation of the evaluation methodology fails to account for the diversity of applicant experiences. This can lead to the exclusion of potentially strong candidates who may not have had access to the same resources or curriculum. Regulatory failure here is a potential breach of non-discrimination principles, as it could inadvertently disadvantage applicants from less privileged backgrounds. Ethically, it demonstrates a lack of empathy and a failure to uphold the principle of equal opportunity. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes speed and efficiency over thoroughness in evaluating diverse applications risks overlooking crucial contextual factors. This can result in superficial assessments that do not accurately reflect an applicant's true potential. The regulatory failure is a lack of due diligence in the admissions process, potentially leading to flawed decisions. Ethically, it shows a disregard for the significance of the application process for the individual applicant. A further incorrect approach that relies heavily on anecdotal evidence or personal biases, rather than the established evaluation criteria, introduces subjectivity and unfairness. This is a significant regulatory failure, as it undermines the integrity and objectivity of the admissions process. Ethically, it violates the principle of impartiality and can lead to discriminatory outcomes. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough understanding of the evaluation methodology's stated goals, a commitment to fairness and equity, and a willingness to consider contextual factors that might influence an applicant's performance. It requires a balanced judgment that upholds the integrity of the assessment process, while ensuring that all applicants are given a fair opportunity to demonstrate their capabilities. Question 20. Quality control measures reveal a minor but consistent error in the scoring rubric for a specific section of the Amet University entrance exam, potentially affecting the scores of approximately 5% of candidates. The error, if uncorrected, could lead to a slight upward adjustment in the scores of those affected. The exam results are due to be released next week. What is the most ethically sound and procedurally correct approach to address this situation? Option A. Proceed with the scheduled release of exam results as planned, and address any appeals from candidates who suspect scoring discrepancies after the results are published. Option B. Immediately correct the scoring rubric, rescore the affected candidates' exams, and inform the admissions committee of the necessary adjustments before releasing the final results. Option C. Disregard the quality control findings, as the error is minor and the exam has already been administered. Option D. Issue a general statement acknowledging a minor scoring anomaly and proceed with the original release of results, assuming the impact is negligible. The correct answer is B. Immediately correct the scoring rubric, rescore the affected candidates' exams, and inform the admissions committee of the necessary adjustments before releasing the final results. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between maintaining academic integrity and responding to potential external pressures or perceived institutional needs. The university entrance exam is a critical gatekeeper, and any compromise in its quality control or fairness can have significant long-term implications for the institution's reputation and the future of its students. Careful judgment is required to balance the need for rigorous assessment with the practicalities of exam administration. The correct approach involves a thorough, objective investigation of the quality control lapse. This means meticulously documenting the identified issues, understanding their scope and potential impact on the exam's validity, and then implementing a corrective action plan that is fair to all candidates and upholds the integrity of the admissions process. This aligns with the ethical principles of fairness, transparency, and accountability expected in academic institutions. Specifically, it adheres to the Amet University's stated commitment to merit-based admissions and the principle of equal opportunity for all applicants, ensuring that no candidate is unfairly advantaged or disadvantaged by administrative errors. An incorrect approach would be to dismiss the quality control findings without proper investigation. This fails to uphold the principle of accountability and risks allowing systemic issues to persist, potentially undermining the credibility of future exams. Another incorrect approach would be to implement a hasty, ad hoc solution that disproportionately affects a subset of candidates without a clear rationale or due process. This violates the ethical imperative of fairness and could lead to accusations of bias or discrimination. A third incorrect approach would be to conceal the findings from relevant stakeholders, such as the admissions committee or academic leadership. This breaches the principle of transparency and erodes trust within the institution. Professionals in such situations should employ a structured decision-making process. This involves 1. Acknowledging and documenting the issue objectively. 2. Assessing the impact and scope of the problem. 3. Consulting relevant university policies and ethical guidelines. 4. Developing a range of potential solutions, evaluating each against ethical principles and institutional objectives. 5. Implementing the chosen solution with clear communication and a plan for monitoring its effectiveness. 6. Learning from the experience to prevent recurrence.